See, I told you it was going to do that, right? I just love that voice. Hi, everyone. It's Eva Marie Everson again. I'm the president of Word Weavers International and the director of Florida Christian Writers Conference. Typically, my sidekick, Taryn Suiters, would be here with me, but I think one of her kids had an orthodontist appointment this morning or some such thing. You know, Jim, I'm going to introduce our guest in a moment, but I'm just going to say this, Jim, I have to remind myself constantly, I've got grandchildren with braces. Taryn has children with braces, right? So it's always this reminder that, yeah, she's young enough to be my kid, but she's such a great vice president of Word Weavers and co-director of Florida Christian Writers Conference. So getting into that, everyone, this is Jim Rubart. Now, some of you already know who he is because, first of all, just one of the most amazing writers of our time. I was telling my walking buddy this morning, who's not in the biz, I said, you know, I'm interviewing Jim Rubart this morning and his son Taylor, who you'll introduce in just a moment. And she says, now tell me who he is. And I'm like, just one of the most brilliant writing minds of our time. That's all. So I just want you to know that's the way I feel about it. I'm so excited to have you on here. Jim, like our good friend, Lynn Austin, who I interviewed just a few weeks ago. Jim is also in the Christy Hall of Fame, which basically means he can never win another Christy. Is that pretty much saying it like it is?
That's true.
You can never compete again, which is great news for the rest of us. He's just won so many. But also a year ago, when the pandemic was really going strong, we at Word Weavers offered you guys an online workshop on fiction. And we had several fiction writers, and Jim's workshop was the most crowded. It was crazy, crazy. So he definitely knows what he's talking about when it comes to the art of writing. But that's not why we're here today. We're here today because Jim came to me with this magnificent idea for our Florida Christian Writers Conference conferees. So Jim, now that I've given that brief introduction of your greatness and your genius, would you introduce your son and then tell us a little bit more, the two of you, about why we're even talking this morning?
Yeah, so I am with my son Taylor, and you're talking about your daughter and looking at them and seeing them develop. And a lot of times I describe Taylor as Jim 2.0 because he's taken all my giftings and done better with them. He's incredibly talented. He's incredibly creative. He decided to form his own video production company back in 2017, and it is just going great guns. And we are partners in the Rubart Writing Academy. But it really is a thrill to see Taylor's so skilled, so creative, and go beyond what, I mean, he's a kid, right? Growing up, it's just this little kid. And then he turns into this amazing adult who becomes my business partner. So incredibly proud of him and incredibly proud to be partnering with him in this venture that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And we'll talk about wonderful?
It in, yeah, what's that? Wonderful. I was going to say that, you know, with all that you and I have accomplished when it comes to writing, that our greatest achievement is flesh and blood.
Yes. Yeah. That's you know, you want to talk about what's your legacy in the writing world. Well, it's not in the writing world. I guess it is, but my real legacy is Taylor and my other son Micah as well. So yeah,
you got to throw him in.
Yeah. So anyway, yes, we'll talk about this product that we came up with, maybe a little bit more in detail how it developed. But Taylor was really the one that brainstormed the idea in the beginning.
So what made you come up with, and by the way, you guys, this is called The Ultimate Guide to Christian Writers Conferences. Think about that just for a moment. The ultimate guide to Christian Writers Conferences. Taylor, what made you come up with this?
Yeah, just realizing that a lot of times writers will go into conferences ill-prepared, and conferences aren't cheap. You're probably maybe taking some time off work. You're spending money not only on the conference, but possibly the accommodations. And to think that you wouldn't get everything you could out of it, we were thinking that's kind of painful. And to not go into it totally prepared, knowing what you want to get out of it, having the tools at your disposal to be able to get out what you're trying to get out of it. So I was talking to Jim Dad, that's what I call him, because to all of you out there, he's Jim, and to me, he's Dad. So I was talking to Jim Dad about that, and I thought, what if we were to put together basically like all of the things that you've seen over the years at conferences, because you've been to however many, 20, 30, 40, 50 writing conferences. Yeah. And let's start with the mistakes that you see, and then how can we turn those into strengths? And how can we say, this is what you may be tempted to do, or this is what you don't know that you should be doing. Here's how to do it. So. Yeah,
that's fantastic. So Jim, break it down for us. And then Taylor, feel free to jump in. Why should somebody want to do this?
Because there is an ultimate goal if you're going to a conference, right? And a lot of times people don't even know what that goal is going in, but they have to have that. They have to have a plan. As Taylor's saying, they have to know the mistakes ahead of time so they can mitigate those to the greatest extent possible. Yeah. And so as we were brainstorming, Taylor said, Dad, I think we do it really simply. We do it before the conference. What are the things you need to prep before the conference? Then what do you do during the conference that maximizes your success? And then finally, and this is an area where a lot of conferees actually break down, is what do you do after the conference? What are the specific things you can do after the conference? And then finally, there is a spiritual component to the conferences that a lot of writers don't think about ahead of time. They don't prep for it ahead of time. They don't prep for it to what they're going to do during the conference, and then the spiritual component after. So those are the three components. And we broke it down, Eva Marie, from everything to research, to creating your elevator pitch, to follow up in a way that's going to get you noticed over all the other conferees that are following up. So yeah, when we got done with this thing, Taylor and I looked at each other and said, I think this is going to be incredibly helpful to people. Yeah. So
absolutely.
We're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Taylor said something about the money that they spend. And Jim, you and I both know, in talking with people, there are people who, this is their vacation. So their vacation money that they've been setting aside, or they use their tax dollars. And a lot of times a lot of people who come to the conferences, they're newly retired. This is that thing they always said they were going to do once they retired, but now their income is a little more fixed, and you want them to get everything out of the conference that they can possibly get out of the conference. And so many of them, because it's their first time, they are the deer caught in the headlights. And we've seen it time and again, especially day two. You get that wide eye.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm drinking from a fire hydrant.
Yes. And you just said something and that I think is really important. You said first time, right? Many conferees at every conference are first timers. Mm-hmm. And so when I went to my first conference back in 2006, I used a lot of my marketing background and my marketing and business principles to absolutely nail the thing, right? So I ended up with 6 editors, 3 agents asking for my proposal. But I did that because I applied my marketing and business principles to the conference. And what I realized is a lot of people don't have that kind of background so they can do that. And even though I had that background, I still had all these mistakes. So Taylor was like, okay, Dad, what do you wish you would have had before you went to your first conference? It's like, I wish I had this course so I could take the things I know and then apply them, and take the things I don't know and apply them. And so that's what we want to prep people for, to go into this thing absolutely ready.
So then we've already talked about some of the things that you talk about. Is this one video? Is this more than one video? Exactly how does this work?
Taylor, why don't you? Taylor is the video guy, obviously, and he put the structure together. So I'll let Taylor talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's broken down into 4 sections. So it is pre-conference. So how do you prepare before you actually go into the conference? I think a lot of the work is done before the conference, and a lot of people think, the work begins at the conference, and we believe that actually it begins before you even go to the conference. A lot of the goals that you're going to be setting for yourself, those are done weeks prior. A lot of the research on the faculty that's going to be there, who you're trying to speak to, who you want to get a meeting with, that's all going to be done before the conference. Right. So in my mind, 30 to 40% of your work is done before you ever arrive.
Oh yeah.
And then the second section is at the conference. So what is actually happening at the conference? The third section is post-conference. So even though you're done, even though you've left the conference, the work has not ended. There are still things you can do to stand out. And that's where a lot of people, I think, will drop the ball. They think, okay, I'm done. I've arrived home. But take all of that stuff that you've written down in your notebooks and actually apply it into your life.
Because we know 80% don't follow up.
Right.
with the editors and the agents who said, send me your material.
Yeah, they said, send it to me. I want to read more. I want to hear from you. And they 80% don't do it.
No.
So
I don't know if they think that those lines are passed out like candy or what, or if they just get scared, or if they start doubt, whatever it is. I'm assuming then that your videos, they approach that, they talk about that.
Absolutely, because it's the emotional, right? It's the emotional component. It's the spiritual component.
Yes.
It's that component that keeps them from or gets them to send in that proposal, because it is fear. It is how long do I have? What's my approach? How can I, if it's not good enough, and then they paralyze themselves. And so we address that in the course as well.
Yeah, because let's face it. See, here's the thing. Most people think I'm going to go to this writers conference and I'm going to meet an editor, I'm going to meet an agent or a freelancer or somebody that's going to change my life. But what they don't expect is that they have not just come to a writers conference, they have come to a Christian writers conference, and they are going to meet God. They are going to have this head-on collision with God. There are so many spiritual things that happen at Christian writers conferences. Well, then, if that is what's happening, guess who wants to undo that? And so now you've got a little spiritual war going on. It's like, that's when you start hearing those words of doubt. They didn't really mean it. You're not really any good. The person sitting next to you was better, that kind of thing. Well, that's a spiritual war.
Absolutely. And you cannot prepare spiritually for those things at the conference. You have to do it. You have to do it beforehand, right? And so we go into that whole emotional thing. I went to I submitted to my first conference. I was so deluded. I sent in my manuscript ahead of time to an agent and an editor, and I was convinced they were going to email me before the conference and go, Jim, this is so great. Send us more pages, right? And guess what? They didn't. Guess what? Both of them rejected my manuscript. And so I had to kind of on the fly kind of reorient myself and continue to choose. Am I going to continue to press in, or am I going to back off? And so we want to prepare people beforehand to be ready for that and have the right mindset, have the right perspective, because that is critical. It's critical to having a successful
And I have to ask, was one of them Steve Lobby? Because, he is known for turning down some of the greatest writers.
Well, there's a great story, and I won't go into the details. I'll tell you sometime. But yes, one of them was Steve Lobby, and he rejected me, and I saved the rejection letter. And years later, he didn't remember, because he gets thousands of people a year. But years later, I confronted him with, because he's got this tape, Redeeming Rejection, and the last thing in the tape, the talk that he gives is when you go to the person and you say, I told you so. And so I went back to Steve and I said, Steve, this is the I told you so moment. And he's like, what are you talking about, Jim? Because by that time we'd become great friends.
Sure, of course.
What are you talking about? The I told you so moment. And I hand him the letter where he rejected me.
Yeah.
And he was just, I rejected you. What was I thinking?
I know. I was just with him at a conference just a month or so ago. And we were actually talking about his rejection of my work. And he goes, and then look what you ended up doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it is, but to be serious, it's how do you handle that rejection? How do you press on after that? What are the attitudes you need to have? What are the actions you need to take? Right. Because this business is a lot about rejection. So the course helps you press through that. And what actions do you take after that? So
I don't know if you remember Dan Penwell. I don't know.
Yeah, I do.
Do you remember Dan Penwell?
Yeah.
Everyone that I've ever spoken to said the greatest rejection they ever got was from Dan Penwell, because Dan didn't just reject you. He told you what you could do to make your work better, which is so rare. That is, usually you get does not fit our editorial needs at this time, email right. or letter. Back in the day, we used to get letters. But Dan would tell you what you could do to make it work. And again, here's what I feel that what you are going to share with the conferees will prepare them for, not to see the no, but the not right now, or the not now, but if you do this. And you need to listen to that. You don't need to come in with the attitude that you already know everything, because you don't.
Right. Exactly.
Good. All right. So then how does this work? Okay, let's get down into brass tacks. Yep. How does this work for our conference? What will our people need to do?
So as Taylor said, it's 4 sections, it's 4 videos, and it's also a comprehensive workbook. So your conferees can take this, listen to the video, watch the video, listen to the videos, and then make notes, create a plan for before, during, and after the conference in that workbook. So they walk away with that. So the way it would work for your conferees is they simply sign up for the ultimate guide. They go to, is it on Teachable, Taylor? Is that where we're doing it?
So I was just going to pull that up. So it looks like, so if you just go to rubartwritingacademy.com/courses, and then you scroll down, you'll see the ultimate guide to Christian publishing.
Okay. And we'll have all of that up for everybody. We'll make sure you have it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's a go through it at your own pace. There's no, in other words, if you say, I don't have time to do it in a week, great. Take 2 weeks or take 3 weeks. And actually we'd encourage that to take time, because there is some really, I mean, we go into detail. How do you pitch your book in a way that editors and agents are going to go, okay, I got to see the full manuscript? How do you present yourself in a way to editors and agents and actually other authors so that you can start to build a network of champions? Because you cannot go at it in this business alone. No. You have to have people rallying around you. So how did I walk out of the Mount Hermon Writers Conference with all these people who wanted to be my champion? Well, I'm going to talk about the techniques, and really I use my marketing and advertising background to show you how to do this. Taylor and I are going to teach you how to do that. So, and I guess the greatest thing about this course actually is not everybody's going to take it, which is good for you if you do take it, because you're going to stand out, because the others aren't going to know what to do and you are. So we're really excited to prep people in a way they have not been prepared for before.
Well, and I think that is key. And I'm thinking back to my first rodeo was not at a Christian Writers Conference. It was at what used to be called the CBA, Christian Booksellers Association International Convention. And it was in 1999. And in those days, you could walk in with a book proposal and editors, couldn't do that for much longer, but you could then. And so what I did was, I'm kind of like what you're talking about. I got to prep. I got to be on task here. And I got a notebook and I printed out my book proposal and I put it into little plastic sleeves. I had 12. I had my business cards and all of that, even like, the thing about putting your picture on your business card and that kind of thing. I prepared what I was going to say. Now, this was long before I ever heard of elevator pitch. I'd never heard any of this, but I just instinctively knew that I was going to have to do something to set myself apart, because there were 16 to 20,000 people at that particular convention. And so my idea was a nonfiction book about marriage proposals, like, some not so famous proposals, some famous proposals woven in with sonnets and traditions and scriptures and things like this. And so I made my appointments, and then I went to my appointments, and I got to tell you that, like most writers, I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert, but I knew the introvert was not going to work. That's not going to work here. You've got to do something to stand out.
Yep.
And so after the shake of the hand, looked them directly in the eye, and I said, quick, tell me how your parents got engaged. And of course they were like, I don't know. And I said, why is it we tell that story every day until the day we get married, and then we never tell it again? And yet this is a love story. And of course I was weaving in the fact that the greatest proposal ever whispered was from the cross. That was Jesus saying, will you be my bride? He was paying the bride price. So I wove all that in, and I'm all excited about it. And Jim, 9 days later, I was offered a contract.
Yeah.
2 days. Yeah. But it was all this prep. And I remember, I don't know if you remember the Litauers, but Marita Litauer I stopped at their booth and I was reorganizing my little notebook, and she looked and she said, what have you got there? And I said, oh, this is my notebook. And I explained how it all worked. And that like once I got a card from an editor, that card went into that particular sleeve and this kind of thing. And I'd made notes. This was the follow-up each one of them had asked me to do. And she said, you're going to be a star.
Wow. She just knew, she could see it. And it's that type of thing. It's that type of follow-up. It's that type of prep. It's that, I have a story. I went to Mount Hermon, my first conference, and I had a meeting with Mick Silva, and he and I had a good connection. And I wrote a note to him, and I did something very creative in that note to him, a thank you note. So that now we're talking about post-conference. How do you follow up?
Post-conference, yeah.
And 2 weeks later, I got an email from him asking to see my manuscript. And Mick and I, of course, are great friends at this point. And at one point I said, Mick, I got to ask you, what made you request my manuscript? He said it was your thank you note. It was your follow-up.
There you go. There you go. Uh-oh, Jim froze. Okay, we have shut him down. Hey, so Taylor, while your father is frozen, can I ask this question? How long are the videos?
Yeah, so the first one, they're each about half an hour. The pre-conference prep, that's a little bit longer. And then at the conference and after the conference, those are a little bit shorter. So I want to say the first one is about half an hour. Next one's 20 minutes. Next one's 20 minutes. And then the fourth video is the spiritual component of Christian writing conferences and how to prepare spiritually for the conference. So that one is about 15 minutes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Is that 1-5 or 5-0?
1-5.
1-5. Okay. So we're not talking about a long, like a huge investment of time when it comes to videos.
No.
Yeah. But we are talking about is you're going to put in the work, after the videos, but these are the things that you need to know. And I think that's really important because we are so busy and we are trying to get ready. All right, then let's talk about the cost, because I think the cost is very doable. What is it?
Yeah, we wanted to make this affordable for people. So it's $45. And we figure if you're going to spend, $450 or $1,000 at a conference, probably, why would you not spend $50 to prepare?
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Well, like I said, it pains us when we see people that will spend $500, $1,000, $1,500, on the conference and lodging and food and.
Yeah.
And then,
that's just the conference. I mean, again, I see people, they're spending $1,000, $1,500, just depending on where they're going and what they're doing. And like you say, why wouldn't you spend less than $50 to make it worth every penny that you're investing?
Yeah. And you probably have expectations going into the conference. You probably have an idea of what you're hoping to get out of it. So why wouldn't you take that time and spend $50 to make sure you're fully prepared for it and get out what you're trying to get out of it?
Yeah. Would you like to introduce your friend?
Yes, this is Walter. Walter is I call him part advisor, part sidekick.
Ah, yes. Well, yes. He's all dressed up in his tux. So
he is. Yes. I told him this was a formal affair.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Walter, actually, he's actually the one that wrote the workbook. So we have to give him.
Well, yeah, absolutely. His paw prints are all over it, I'm sure.
Yes.
His kitty paw prints. Okay. So I'm going to get all this information up for you guys. My word weavers, my Florida Christian Writers Conference conferees. We are excited about this. And Jim and Taylor, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we end the recording?
Just one element. And we talk a little bit about this in the Ultimate Guide, but most writers, most people in any creative endeavor think that talent is the thing, and they doubt themselves and they say, I don't have the natural talent. I don't even know why I'm at this conference. Why did I come? I am here to tell you that talent, natural talent, is not the greatest predictor of success.
It's true.
In fact, it's far and away not the greatest predictor of success. The greatest predictor of success is perseverance, the decision to keep going, the decision to say, you know what, God called me on this journey and I am staying on this journey and I'm continuing to step in even though it's hard. So I'm telling you, don't give up. If this is your dream to be a writer, press in, go to that conference with great high expectations of what God's going to do, the connections he's going to make. So just perseverance, you can do it, right? honestly, I was that person. I was that person back before I went to my first conference in 2006 going, what am I doing here? So you can do it. I just want to tell you, you can do it.
Yeah, because you know what? I mean, and it is so much about networking. It's so much about who you meet. It's so much about those God connections. Like all of a sudden I'm sitting next to this person or whatever, happen to bump into this person, riding the elevator with this person, walking back to the rooms with this person. You just don't know. You just simply don't know. And you should not expect that. You should always be aware of, what's going on around you, which I think is one of the greatest. When I give my advice on, what would you say to somebody who's going to a writers conference? One of the things I say is always know that from the moment you get there, you are on. And don't think that just because you're in your room, people can't hear you in the other room, because we've certainly had circumstances like that where I've overheard things through the walls that made me go, I wonder if they know that there's an editor on the other side of the
right. That's listening. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things we talk about and we teach in the Ultimate Guide is, and Randy Ingermanson taught me this years ago. He said, Jim, when you go to a conference, do not think contracts, think contacts.
Right.
And so we teach you how to maximize your contacts with other authors, for example. And that's an area where a lot of conferees, they're so focused on, I got to talk to an editor, I got to talk to an agent. Right. Whereas if they'd focus on relationship and just let God do the rest. My first conference, I end up just befriending Trisha Goyer, and before I know it, she's recommending me to Janet Grant, her agent. And so what I'm saying is there's so much more to a conference than just I got to get that contract. There's so much more.
So, and like you just said, so much more than just the editors and the agents. Sometimes it's just the freelancers that are going to jump in and they're going to be your greatest cheerleader. I mean, when I think about some of the people that I now call my friends, and I just have to go, I can't believe, I know this person, or I've worked with this person, or have, had any kind of publishing dealings with this, it's just those happenstance meetings at conferences. They weren't set up. They weren't appointments. They were not the 15 minutes.
Right.
They were just the happenstance appointments. You, for example, I think I met you at Mount Hermon. Did I not?
I think it was Mount Hermon. Yes.
It was either,
it might've been Blue Ridge.
Blue Ridge. It was Blue Ridge. And hey, we got up on stage and danced together.
We did. You put the tiara on my head.
Put the tiara on your head. That's a story for another day.
Yeah, that's another day.
Or never.
I think
we have pearls. You had pearls.
Wow. Yes. Yes, I did. Okay. Okay. Moving on.
Moving on. I don't remember the song, but I remember we had a really good time. So. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Taylor. I'm going to stop the recording now, and I will have all this information for you. Just look for it. And thank you again.
Thanks.